Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. Today I want to talk about Ethic, the first spin-off from the book Moth to a Flame by Ashley Antoinette. If you have not seen it, I recently reviewed Moth to a Flame, so my review is up on the channel. I'll also link it here. But let's get into what this book is about. Ethic is, like I said, the first book that's a spin-off of Moth to a Flame. We first meet Ethic in the book, and he is, on the surface, the young dude that her father, Raven's father, is molding. But as it comes to find out, Ethic is actually the supplier, right, for her father. So he doesn't work for, he works with her father. But he's so dope in the fact that he's not above partnering with. So he didn't see himself as above her father. He really respected her father, looked up to him, even though he was, if we're looking at a hierarchical system, above her father in rank. That's how we're introduced to Ethic. As I'm talking about this book, I didn't do a lot of spoilers when I did my review of Moth to a Flame, but as I'm discussing this book, I will spoil a lot of that book with this book review. This will also be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't read it, stop now. This story is where we get to know more about Ethic. So in the first book, at the end of the book, Raven is actually killed. And if you recall in my first review, I really talked about how Raven was comparable to Winter from The Coldest Winter Ever. But the difference is, and Ethic was comparable to Midnight. But the difference here is that unlike Midnight, Ethic really did have an interest in Raven, but she had to grow, mature, go through some things. But eventually they did fall in love. Unfortunately, Raven had been in a very abusive relationship before that, and the guy was not willing to let Raven go. And because he wasn't willing to let Raven go, it continued to be an ongoing struggle between him wanting to control her life and her wanting to be with Ethic, and Ethic wanting to kill Myzine, which was the guy's name. So Ethic put out the hit to have Myzine killed. Once Raven was finally able to escape from Myzine to go meet up with Ethic, she couldn't find her car keys, so she ended up taking Myzine's car, but the guys saw Myzine's car. It was mad tinted windows, they didn't know who was inside. They sprayed up the car, and Raven was killed. And the only person who survived inside of the car was Raven, her best friend, and the baby. The baby was Ethic's. And so this is where we pick up, right? Ethic is taking care of his son. He also has an older daughter from a relationship that he had prior to the one with Raven. And then he also takes in Morgan Atkins. Morgan Atkins is Raven's little sister, so Ethic is raising 3 children. That's where we pick up. Morgan is older now, and she is the new Raven. She's the last of the Atkins line, a legendary family in Flint, Michigan, known for the father being a drug lord, but they were like the crown jewel of the city. They were respected. Their name rings bells. So Morgan is the new it girl. She's gorgeous, just like her big sister was, just like her mother was. She comes from a lineage of gorgeous women, but she is deaf. She's always been deaf, so people look at her like the R word, like she's just simple and dumb. And that's not the case. She just is differently able. She just isn't able to hear. So I'm gonna say trigger warning here. I'm gonna give you all what Ashley Antoinette did not give us in the book. A trigger warning. This book needs to come with a trigger warning. So Morgan really has a crush on Messiah. I really love Messiah. We'll get more into his character later. I really love Messiah. She has a crush on him. He is actually really feeling her too, but he actually is the young dude under Ethic. Like Ethic is really, he's his own man, but Ethic is taking him under his wing. He's the only dude that Ethic has really kind of like brought in and made his young cub. So out of respect for Ethic, he won't touch it. Morgan's trying to get his attention. He sees her, but he's like, I can't touch that. He's not really trying to give her the type of time. Morgan, in order to make him jealous, leaves with this dude that's like his enemy. She doesn't really know all the details there, but she just knows that like she's feeling this dude's attention, and Messiah isn't giving her the attention she wants. She's gonna go with her best friend, and a couple of dudes. She has the gut feeling that like she shouldn't go, and even Messiah sees her leaving, and Messiah's best friend is like, you gonna let that happen? And Messiah's like, she had just turned 18. It was like her 18th birthday, so he's like, she grown, let her live her life. And so, or he's like, I can't control that, whatever. So that night, something horrific ends up happening. She is abused that night in the worst ways. And Messiah finds out because her quote unquote best friend, who is not her friend at all, was recording this on IG Live. So it's kind of out there. It's clear from what people can see that Morgan did not want this to happen. So Messiah is hot. This event is like a trickle down effect. So many other things happen as a result of this. So Messiah is ready to send it up. He's been waiting to get that dude. You ain't said nothing but a word. This is the reason he needed. But Morgan is afraid of what Messiah is gonna do, because Messiah's the one who comes and rescues her. She locked herself in the bathroom. So it's just her at the hotel. By the time Messiah gets there, everyone's gone. She's just locked in the bathroom. So Morgan is scared of what Messiah is gonna do. So she texts Ethic. So Ethic goes and he's like, hey, I got it, right? And Messiah leaves. He doesn't want to, but out of respect for Ethic, he's like, you said it, it's your word, it's law. So Ethic goes to kill the dude instead. And Ethic walks inside. Dude sleep on the couch. Ethic sprays him on the couch. But lo and behold, his niece, you couldn't see it. She was under the blanket. He was holding her. They were asleep. Ethic didn't see that. He ends up killing the little girl too. This guts Ethic. Just kids are off limits. He operates by that code, the code that people don't understand these days, but he's like, kids are off limits. So he's like, he knows that this is like a horrible thing to his soul, and there's no way for him to reconcile this. He can't fix it. Things progress. This is where so much of this story is linked to that moment. So Alani comes into the picture. Alani is Lucas. Lucas is one of the guys who invaded and did what they did to Morgan. So Alani is his sister. So she understands that her brother was out here being reckless. She doesn't know about this that has happened, but she knows he's been out here being reckless and his karma was going to catch up to him at some point. But she just feels so depleted. Like, why did it have to be her child? And so Ethic feels horrible. As the story will go, right, their paths end up crossing. Ethic feels drawn to her. She feels drawn to him. She's going through a terrible time. She feels like he gives her a lifeline. Ethic knows that he's wrong, so he's trying to keep his distance and not pursue her. But he can't help himself. He's so drawn. And one thing leads to another. Lines continue to get crossed. He's trying to financially make her life better because he knows that he can't give her child back. And eventually he tells her that it was him. That changes everything, obviously. There's two ways to feel about that. Whether he should have held it to himself and carried that so not to put that weight on her, or whether he was a better man for telling her and being honest. Either way, her baby daddy was in jail when this was all happening, Cream. And he's now supposed to be getting out. He wants revenge. So Alani is super hurt by this, obviously. What? The man that you've fallen in love with is the person who murdered your daughter, right? What worse person would it be for you to realize that this man who I've been intimate with was the one time, because the next morning, lo and behold, things came out, right? He told her. So just what do you do with that? So obviously she doesn't want to be involved. And when she gets home, who is sitting on her living room sofa other than her baby daddy, who's back and is ready to set the block on fire? He said he knows who killed their daughter. Dude will be dead by the end of the night. that's the end of the story. I make that sound so light, but it was dark. It was a dark story. Very emotional, very roller coaster-esque, as Ashley Antoinette does. I think she's great at building suspense. She really pulls you in. She keeps you, you're never bored. Like I said with the first book, it can be triggering. I think for me, she has you worried, right? Like you're like, okay, things will be going smoothly. You're like, I know it's not gonna continue to go smoothly. What's gonna happen? Like, I just know something horrible is gonna happen. It's so stressful for me reading these books, so I don't read them straight through anymore. I go chapter by chapter. I'll be reading these books. I am gonna finish the series. I'm currently on book 2, but we won't talk about that right now. But I'll be reading like a chapter of this, and I'll go read a chapter of a lighter book. And I'll tell y'all what I'm reading besides this book at the end of this video. But overall, really enjoyed the story. Ashley Antoinette is a good writer. Sometimes she's very frustrating in the sense that like there's so much pain, there's so much trauma. But I do think she does a good job of trying to show, even life in the hood, she tries to show the beauty and the hardships of it. So even though it's frustrating sometimes, because I'm like, I don't just want pain, I don't just want trauma. That is the reality. And so she does try to show why, like the true emotions of the people who are navigating through that and the whole humanity of them and not just their circumstance. And I appreciate that. So sometimes even with that though, it can feel like she's trying to do a lot. So even with Ethic, and Ethic's name obviously is a play on being ethical. So on one end, he does do things that other people may regard as evil, but he has a moral code that he operates by. So even though he seems as if he lacks morality, he is moving from a sense of ethics that are his own. And I would say it's a street code that no longer exists, but as someone who was raised by big brothers and big cousins who moved a certain way, I get it and I understand it. So at one point when he's in conflict, when he's really trying to unpack the fact of him feeling kingly but understanding that he just killed another black man, but also that black man violated his, which is playing in him killing another black man is playing into the hands of what the system has put in place for him to do, but also the fact that that black man violated his daughter and him trying to unpack and make sense of all of that. Listen, I have no sympathy for Lucas at all, but I understood that internal conflict and that all of that can be hard. But Ethic doesn't feel bad either. It's just those esoteric conversations that you have with yourself, that existentialism, like what does this all mean? What am I doing with my life? I understood that. So I did understand why she tried to have those conversations with Ethic and unpack all of that. The messaging that she was trying to send here, I absolutely get it. But don't start none, won't be none. And I do feel like sometimes her messages can come across as a little preachy, especially in this book. But I do understand the message she's trying to send. She's trying to say a lot of things at once. So I understood that and I got it. But the piece for me sometimes I was like, would Ethic naturally have these thoughts? Sometimes I would question that, like the aspect of like Ethic going down this intellectual thought process of having killed Lucas. What does that all mean? It's not impossible for him to have that conversation with himself. It just didn't feel the most organic, but I did understand what she was trying to do. Another thing is like she often repeats in this book the moth to a flame and uses that a bunch, and I'm like, girl, we get it. Moth to the flame, we understand the analogy. Like, I don't need you to continue to use the same one. I'm gonna need you to find something different. But I understand that that's her thing, and it'll be present throughout this whole series, I'm sure. And it probably wouldn't bother the average reader. It just was something that, you know, I noticed. So another big thing here, which isn't something that bothered me in this book, it was something that bothered me in Moth to a Flame. And I do think you should read Moth to a Flame before reading the series. Sometimes it's like, oh, you don't need to. I do think you need to get a good sense of who Ethic is before jumping into the series. So in the first book, Mizan, I talk about it in my video. Mizan does something horrible to Raven where he's looking her straight in the eyes. He's literally attacking her to try to scare her into robbing her father to get money from him. But he has on a ski mask and he's pretending like he's a dude who my son owes money, right? So this is how he's trying to game her into getting him the money that he needs, or getting him everything that he needs to actually take down her father. Raven pissed me off in that book because there's no world in which I'm going against the men that I love. But that's why the first one, my video was titled, like, how far would you go to prove your loyalty? Not that far, but Raven did. Neither here nor there, we're past that. But she was looking him square in the eyes and she did not know it was him. And I just find it unrealistic for you to be laid up in love with, staring at this man day in, day out, and you are looking him dead in the eyes and you don't know that it's him. I did not believe that. So sometimes with these books, there are certain things that for me, where I feel as if we have to suspend belief. And that was one of those times. And I say that because here, after he kills Lucas and he realizes that the little girl is with him, he holds her in his arms while she's dying. He feels horrible. And while that is happening, the young girl's grandmother walks in and sees Ethic. Ethic also has on a ski mask. But she looks him square in his eyes. She's like, you get out of here, before she realizes that her granddaughter is dead. This comes full circle in this book when Ethic is going out getting to know Alani. And it's not like Ethic is just trying to pursue her. Different circumstances keep bringing them together. So definitely read the book to see how all of this comes together. But the grandmother, the moment she sees Ethic and looks in his eyes, she knows that it was him. I won't tell you what happens after that because read the book. But that, for me, I knew that would happen. I knew if she ever saw him, she would know. So the fact that that happens here and didn't happen in the first book, it's just, for me, sometimes there are like certain plots that happen where I'm just like, no. So I was like, why does it happen here but didn't happen there? But I have another friend who actually doesn't believe that it would have happened like that this time. Like, how would she just know from the eyes? So you can decide for yourself how you feel about that. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. My other big issue with this was just, sometimes I don't like the fact that when I'm reading something, I can identify other things that I feel like influenced it immediately. So for me, the end of this book, when Alani walks in and she sees Cream sitting on her couch, I was like, what in the baby boy is happening here? With Snoop Dogg and Taraji P. Henson's character, I was just like, okay. So I hated that ending. Y'all know how I can get about endings. I did not like that ending in the least bit. One thing I think it did a good job of causing us to ponder, though, which really set up the second book, was he said that the man who killed their daughter would be dead before the night was done. I felt that he would believe that the killer was Messiah because there was no way for him to know Ethic. I know Ethic's super popular, but he's like a ghost. So he wouldn't have been able to connect those dots. And my friend really felt like he would just know that it was Ethic. So we had long debates about who he was going to go after, Messiah or Ethic. And I did feel like the book did a really good job of setting up that ending. I won't tell y'all who was right. We'll talk about that when I review book 2. But that was a really good setup for that. But overall, I could say I enjoyed the book. It's a easy read. These are books that you can, I think I read this book in a day. My friend who is reading the books, who I put her onto these books, she finished the whole series in less than a week. So for me, like I said, it's stressing me out, so I'm not going that quickly. But definitely easy reads, suspenseful, will keep your interest, will keep you going. I think the writing is well done. I don't see flaws there. I feel like she does a great job of doing voice. In her dialogue, I'm never uncertain about who's speaking. All the characters feel authentic. They all have their own individual voices, and I appreciate that. The storylines, there are places where I say there are plot holes and you have to suspend your belief. And so that, they're not huge, they're minor things. So for me, there was more than one person who attacked Morgan. So why was only one person killed and we never been the block on the other dude? So that bothered me. But overall, really enjoyed the books. My flaws, again, were the things that I've mentioned. So I definitely have no regrets about reading it, and I will continue to finish the series. Based on my scale of read now, read when you have time, or read it if you want, I would definitely say that this book is a read it when you have time. Here's the thing, I'm really enjoying these books, but I wouldn't tell anyone like, oh, you have to drop everything you're reading to read these books. I do think they're good. I am enjoying them. They take a heavy emotional toll though. But if this is your genre and you know that like great urban fiction reads are your thing, then these are great. So generally speaking, I would say read it when you have time, but depending on the type of reader you are, you might want to read it now. So that's where I will place this. That's it for me. The book that I'm currently reading, I'm reading two books. One is obviously Ethic 2 by Ashley Antoinette, and the other is Radio Love by Ebony Liddell. So those are the two books I'm reading. I cannot say which book review you all will get first. It really just depends, but hopefully you all will check both of those out so we can have good dialogue down in the comment section. Until the next time, I'm MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. Please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the best day of your life on purpose. Peace. Hola, adios.